Most buyers never tell you where you lost them. They sit through your demo, read your proposal, take your follow-up call, and then they go quiet. And somewhere in your sales process, that deal gets marked as lost to a competitor or no decision. But the truth is usually simpler, and it's harder to hear. The process broke down somewhere, and nobody on your team saw it coming. Because your buyers have a seat at every meeting you will never be invited to. The outside seat sits in that seat. I'm Mike Tumulty, founder of Inside Now, where we go through your commercial funnel as a real buyer and tell you exactly what we find. I'm also the host of the Outside Seat podcast, where I bring that conversation to the people who can actually do something about it. Every week, 2 strands. The GTM leaders talking strategy, and then the unsung heroes talking reality. Brought to you by Flourish, the GTM talent partner that connects hiring, development, and performance in sales, in life. Now to today's show. Welcome to this week's episode of The Outside Seat. I'm thrilled to be joined by Simon Edmunds. Simon is a BDR leader, a sales leader, and is working currently within the cybersecurity space. But rather than me give the introduction to Simon, why don't you give the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Mike. First of all, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. So, as Mike said, my name is Simon. I am the senior manager covering the international markets here at BeyondTrust. BeyondTrust is a cybersecurity software company specialising in the privileged access and identity security space, essentially protecting organisations.
Thank you for agreeing to this episode. You talked there about leading sales development teams on an international, on a global perspective. How big is your team today?
So currently we have 28 SDRs, BDRs. We have a mixture of sort of inbound and outbound reps covering all territories outside of America. So we've got hubs in Manchester, hubs in Frankfurt, and hub in Dubai, and one over in Singapore. So a very well spread team with lots of different backgrounds, go-to-market strategies, as I'm sure you can imagine.
No, very good. And for those people that are not aware of the differences between SDR and BDR, what are those?
The way that we structured our organization here at BeyondTrust is that the overarching team is what we call XDR. And then out of that, we have sort of specific roles. So SDRs are our inbound reps. So reps that are new into sales, very little, if any, experience, but that massive sort of skill versus will mentality that we can then build up and progress through the business. The BDRs are focused on outbound activity, so new logo, new product, which is a massive driver for us at the moment, being a platform business. We also have a hybrid role, which is a mixture of SDR and BDR in those locations and regions which we're not massively established in, to make sure we're covering all the market. We don't necessarily have that need to split the team out just yet. And we also have a partner BDR role in a couple of the territories where we are a partner first business, partner led organization, and it's working with those strategic partners to drive our vision, our brand within those key strategic partners to build out that partner network.
No, very good. So if we just do a little bit of a double tap on that last part around the partner BDR, because I've seen this and I've put this in place in previous companies myself. But when I've seen other people do it, they do the demand gen and then pass opportunities to the partners. Whereas where it sounds like what you're doing is what I did, was to find more partners. So we're scouring for and using our BDR skill set to find more partners to then increase our coverage within that particular region, increase the expertise in that region. Is that how you've gone about it?
It's a little bit different in that, we have our key strategic partners that we have, but what this role really works on is building the brand of BeyondTrust within those partners. So actually going in and running, account mapping sessions with the AEs within one of our partners. It's also, qualifying deal registrations, because again, some deal registrations could just come through to us with one line of information, but it's right, how can we make sure that through discovery we hand over a really good opportunity to the account execs? And I always call it as, when a prospect goes to a partner or an existing customer goes to a partner, one of theirs, and they say, right, we need a project, we need a solution. It's how do we get BeyondTrust to become one of those key partners rather, or companies that they go to, because partners have got multiple vendors for multiple solutions, but it's how do we build that brand with our partners to make sure that we're in the top 2 or 3 when they're thinking of doing a specific project which we can help them on.
Okay, so in essence, what you're doing with their partners is you're teaching them how to fish, and how to position BeyondTrust to their clients, and you're giving them all of the skill sets you've developed and designed internally, and then teaching them how to fish.
Yeah, and I think we have a phenomenal tech stack here at BeyondTrust, and it's using that tech stack to say, right, Mr. Account Executive of one of our partners, you've got here 50 accounts. Let us help you map them. But what we'll use is we will use our intent signals through Zoom Info, through 6sense, for example, and we'll then pass that intel back, because you don't want to be going out to those, say, 25, 50 accounts. It's let's actually now focus on the ones which are ICP, which ones are showing intent, and we can help you craft the message to really target those specific customers rather than all of them at once. So it's that sharing of intel which has really helped drive that role.
Very good. One of the other things that you said within your introduction when hiring was, I'll use the terminology which you said, skill versus will, and that's when talking about the SDRs versus BDRs. So from a hiring perspective, what are the differences when you're hiring for that skill versus will versus experience?
Yeah, I think if you take it back to my sort of grounding in the world of sales, which was in recruitment, specialising in that graduate area, finding the next tranche of sales superstars that can go on to be your future sales leaders. For me, the skill is always going to be low. Okay. We don't necessarily want people with loads of skill, because they might come with bad skill. Okay. And you've got to then retrain them and refocus them. So for me, it's that will side of things. Can they do the job? Will they do the job? And will they fit in? Are typically sort of the 3 main areas that I look for. And I think, if you get somebody in at that early stage, maybe 6 months experience, have done jobs in their holidays, for example, in and out of university or in and out of education or at school, for example, that shows they've got that will, that they want to step outside their comfort zone. If someone is living inside a comfort zone, they're going to struggle in sales, in my view. So it's how do they push their boundaries? And that comes from a will thing.
How do you test for that in the interview process to ensure that you're surfacing the things that you want to see?
Yeah, I think it's coachability at the same time. You
Right.
could have all the will in the world, but if you can't be coached, you don't have those coaching traits, one might say. So it's things like, as you go through the interview process, I always give feedback, and I ask the recruiters to give feedback through the process very specifically, because then I can then understand what the feedback's been given. So then I can then, in the next stage, or whoever's doing the next stage, can question them on the feedback being given, and have they listened to that feedback? Have they gone away and researched that feedback, or have they tried to alter themselves to fit that feedback into the next stage of the interview? That to me is one of the best signs if somebody is coachable and willing to learn from feedback. So that's how you coach on the sales floor, isn't it? Is through live feedback and live coaching. And if someone can take that, filter it and apply it through an interview process, the chances are they're going to be able to do it in the role.
Very good. And how do you, because one of the things you mentioned was that you've built teams in different locations. So whether that's as far away as Singapore, Frankfurt, so basically anywhere outside the US currently. So when we look at the way that we compensate our teams, especially with the BDRs and SDRs, some of it comes down to conversion of leads through to opportunities, through to actual pipeline. Maybe without getting too granular on company information, what's the lever that you use to reward the activity that your team are producing?
I think for me, again, we've been through a few iterations of comp plans and drivers, and I think you've got to look at what people can control within their comp plan. If they have got a lot of things, if it's a complicated comp plan that they can't control, are they going to be as motivated to try and hit those various different things? So I think from a from an XDR, BDR perspective, I think you've got to give them as much control as you can, but also you've got to then get them to think about what is important to other parts of the organization, because every business is driven by pipeline. Okay. So pipeline has to be sort of, everyone is responsible for that. There's no hierarchy in the pipeline machine. Everyone generates pipeline. So there needs to be I personally, again, when I first started, I was paid on meetings booked. It was like, brilliant, I've booked 50 meetings here. But then if you look at the ratios, I was booking them for booking them sake, because that's what I could control. Whereas, again, the world has moved on. Go-to-market organizations have moved on. And now it is about quality of opportunity, and it's about how that moves to pipeline and how that moves to close deals. So for me, the ultimate comp plan, if you're looking at a BDR or SDR comp plan, there should be 3 metrics. There should be accepted opportunities, because that is down to a quality. Then you've got to look at a pipeline. So what is that opportunity actually generally worth? And then thirdly, it's down to close won deals. So there should be a mix, in my view, but I would probably say 70% for accepted opportunities for the SDR BDR team, because they can control that really well, their activity. And then 15% pipeline target broken down for an individual SDR, and then 15% on closed won deals, or the theatre attainment that they're aligned to. They should be rewarded on that overall theatre they've contributed to.
Yeah, it's a very smart mechanism that you put in place there. I think one of the challenges, because I've seen a lot of leaders over rotate one way or t'other, and they go, well, we're going to go for a pipeline number. That is still too subjective, because what you know is when you first book your meeting, you might have the deal we think is going to be this much, but invariably when that deal closes, it's never that much. It's either a little bit more or usually a lot less. So then when you're setting a goal based on that pipeline number, then it's not accurate. So again, that is too subjective. I think you've struck the right balance, which is 70% on accepted opportunities, because the acceptance is based on qualification criteria that you've defined. And then the pipeline and the revenue is the output. I love the fact that you've got 15% on the revenue aspect, because again, you're keeping in the mind of the BDR and the SDR, it needs to close. It needs to close. So outside of the typical compensation, do you do any other things? So SPIFs, incentives, those kind of, and how do you structure those, and how do you motivate your teams that way?
Yeah, I think just to go back to that question before, again, I spoke about short, medium, and long term. Yeah, accepted opportunity, short term wins. Your pipeline goal is a quarterly goal. That's medium term commission, and then close won deals are long term. So again, you're building that long term view on it. I love incentives. They're one of my favorite things, how I keep myself young, Mike, doing incentives with the team. And I think, again, the world has changed. Yeah. Again, I think back to some of the incentives and things that we used to run when I was when I was first starting out my career to where they are now. But again, it's incentives which are going to drive that commission plan. Okay. It's things like, right, this week our concentration is going to be on pipeline, right? We need to have a web with all our account executives that we're aligned to. We then need to look at all of our opportunities that have been accepted that might just be at $1,000, or might be sort of suspect values potentially, and whichever BDR can update the most opportunities with the right pipeline number or a relative pipeline number, would win a prize. You have your call out days, okay, which again is a little bit of a activity metric around booking meetings. We typically try and do those at the start of the quarter, and then the first week of the last month of the quarter, to push the two ends of the bookend, so to speak, of the quarter. But also it's doing things like, we've got a lot of golfers in the office, okay, and we have a putting mat. So it's like, right, if spin the wheel, for example, it's about doing, for me, activities which don't involve maybe sitting at a desk as well. So early finishes, doing activity based things like indoor golf simulator through to go-karting. But for me, it's those things. The only way to really drive incentives by understanding your team. If you're putting incentives on which your team don't value or they can't relate to, then you're not going to get the reaction. And how you incentivize our Dubai team is very different to how you incentivize our German, our Central European team to our remote team over in Australia. So it's about that balance. They need to be regionalized, not one size fits all.
Now, before we continue, a word from today's sponsor, Flourish. Most businesses don't underperform because they can't hire or don't invest in training. They underperform because the two things never talk to each other. Hiring happens over here, development happens over there, and somewhere in the middle, invariably performance breaks down. Flourish fixes that. They're an award-winning go-to-market talent partner working across early career SDR hiring, senior sales talent, and practical training that drives real, measurable results and not just activity. I've personally worked with their managing director, Sarah Skelton, for almost 20 years, so I know how they operate. They stay invested through the full journey and not just the placement. If you're looking to build a commercial team that actually performs, Flourish is where I would start. Find them at helloflourish.com. In sales, in life. No, I completely agree. I love the concept of it keeps you young. So when driving in a previous world or previous life and doing these incentives, I would have beat the boss. And basically it would be, I was the dealer on Deal or No Deal. And they would come, they'd have to do whatever the game was on the day. So it could be the one with the highest number of calls for that day, or the one that bought the most meetings that day would then come and play me on a game of Deal or No Deal. And the concept was that they would try and win tickets for a raffle. And then at the end of a quarter, I would bring in £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 worth of prizes, pimp out the boardroom, and would have TVs and PlayStations and videos. The amount of time I spent in HMV, for those people that don't know who HMV are, because a lot of them went out of business, I would go and buy stacks of DVDs and Blu-rays and pile them up and stick raffle tickets to it. And it really incentivized the people, because there's two parts to it. One was coming up and beating the boss, and people would come and surround us whilst they tried to beat the boss. And then the day of, so always the last working day of a quarter, would finish 2 hours early because it would take us that long to go and give out all of the different prizes. And people walking out of the office with big flat screen TVs or PlayStations or Nintendos or stacks of DVDs or CDs. It was just a really good way to keep people pumped and motivated. But the biggest motivating factor was not the incentives. It was the career path. So how do you design that for your team and make sure that people are progressing within the organization? Because you do get people who are career BDRs and career sales development, and they're happy to do that. But it's typically a breeding ground. It's a breeding ground of a sales academy to push people into their first AE role. How do you cater for that in your organization?
I think we have a fantastic go-to-market enablement team that we work alongside as leaders to design these things. And I think it's, for me, when it comes to career progression, has got to be, it's not just about hitting, and this is one thing that I really try and emphasize with people. It's not just about hitting your number. It's about your brand. Okay. You could be the best BDR in the world, smashing targets, but your buyers of your progression are actually the AEs you work alongside. Because if a role comes up, the sales directors are going to go to the AEs that they work on and say, okay, what do you think? We've got this role spot opening up. Who on the BDR floor do you know? Who's got a good impression, etc. They are your brand builders just as much as your number. So for me, when someone gets sort of past 6 months, and our typical tenure for an SDR is they do typically 9 to 12 months as an inbound SDR. Then they spend probably 15, 18 months as a BDR before they can then progress into the wider sales function. So I would say to people, after 6 months in that BDR role, you need to start thinking about, right, let me see if I can follow a deal from discovery all the way through to close. Then take those, call recording, the Gong meetings, we use Gong to record all of our calls, is actually then use Gong to learn new questions, how deals are put together, how negotiation is put together, how to do the parts of the job you don't know how to do, and keep a log of this. Okay, to say, right, because when you go into things, you go, look, this was a deal that I followed, this was a challenge that this AE had, this was how they solved it. You can then put on real life examples. That's how you sell, isn't it? We sell to similar organizations with this similar use case. Use that in your interview. So then it's about giving them a little whetting their appetite with some enablement that AEs do when they join the organizations, going through command of the message and command of the sale training in more detail, going through medpic training, learning how the partner channel works. So I always say to people, you need to be doing 3 learning sessions a week. Yeah. Before work, after work, lunchtime, whenever it is. Okay. If I see somebody stopping work, say at 4:30, and then listening to a demo or some online content that's going to help them in their career, I am all for that. Okay. I think it's a really important part, because they can then use that in their role, and it builds their knowledge, because knowledge is power.
I couldn't agree more. And if you look at the way you framed that right at the start, is like your numbers doesn't mean you're going to get the opportunity. Oh, sorry, it's not going to get you the job. But what it does is it opens the door. So first of all, control your controllables. Make sure you're hitting your numbers so that when the opportunity presents itself, you're in a position to go for it. But there are those other factors around it that are equally as important. And you've articulated those really, really well. Your job as a leader, in my estimation, is just to open the door. That's it. You can't push them through the door. You can't pull them through the door. You can just open it and hope that they're ready to take their first step. And setting the environment up to be able to do that is key. And it sounds like you've done a fantastic job of doing that and making sure that everybody is aware of what their responsibilities are, but also aware of what is going to help them with that first step. So kudos to you.
I think as well, it's having that time and going to the senior leaders as well and getting to know them, talking to them. Well, like we said, control the controllables is one of our team mantras. You can control and own your progression, but you've got to take that step. We can lead you to those steps, but you've got to take them, and we'll help you do that.
Very good. I'm just conscious a little bit on time here, and there's the elephant in the room, which we've not really talked about when it comes to BDRs and SDRs. And I do want to touch on it to get your perspective, but if we don't go super deep, then that's the reason why. And that's 2 little letters, and that is AI, and how you've leveraged AI today to support your SDRs, BDRs. Maybe a quick synopsis of what you do or don't do when it comes to AI, and then we'll maybe a couple of follow-ups.
Yeah, of course. I think it's, the SDRs, BDRs that adopt it in the right way will go on to elevate their careers even further. It's not about sitting at your desk and building 10,000 prompts and trying to get everything to do it for you. For me, I've spoken a lot about ICP, I've spoken a lot about intent. It is, instead of sitting in Zoom info, setting loads of parameters and things like that, it's getting your focused accounts list, your intent, your ICP intent list, utilizing AI to draw out the information that you can then use on the phone, in an email, in a social selling environment to help craft your message, because that's what will help you then stand out from the 100 other emails that a CISO or a security manager is going to get from all the other vendors out there. How can you use AI to elevate your interaction and make you more efficient? If that's the message that I am utilizing at the moment through the AI tools that we use.
And the AI tools that you're using, are they native tools? So, for example, you talked about Gong, and obviously Gong has a series of AI capabilities within there. Do you leverage any other tools? So where I'm getting to is a lot of BDR organizations are using things like a ChatGPT or a Claude or something to help them craft their message. And you see it today, and I get inundated with slop. which I know has
Yeah.
come from some form of AI. How do you avoid that within the organization?
Yeah, I think so. Again, Zoom Info has got an email writing capability in it now through Copilot. Claude, we use Claude, that has got that capability in there. You then go into Outreach, which has got Kaya. You then go into Gong, and it's got those ones. So there is a lot of noise within those, but it's about, right, how do I use all of those tools to get and integrate them together, yeah, to get the best data out of it. And again, I can see AI emails a mile off, the double spacing after a dash and things like that. So for me, it's more around building an engine, a go-to-market engine that is efficient with the data that we feed it. And we have outreach, we have signals in outreach, we have sequences in outreach that we have written, etc. But it's then, how do you use those templates to use AI to craft the message that is going to get the attention? But how do you differentiate it from, as you said, to use your words, the slop that is always in there? For me, it's about the intent and the research that is going to make somebody more efficient, because the message is the message.
Very good. And are you training not your people, but the AI models that you're using? So like Claude, are you training those to help you not only identify the message to send to that particular ICP, but what product to position? Is that something that you do? Is that something within the RevOps organization, the product organization? How are you going about doing that?
So as an SDR, we're still finding our feet with the use of Claude. There are things like projects, and myself and the other managers in our international region, we're building co-work projects, for example, on for loading account lists into, which can then give us an SDR toolkit, as we're going to call it, that can then help us. So we're kind of finding our way. We're doing self-learning, a lot of courses in there, but I know that our RevOps team are building out projects and things like that at the moment in the background.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. So we have a closing tradition on this podcast, which is our rapid fire 5 questions.
Indeed.
And these are the questions that we're asking all of our guests on this show. So when you're ready, we'll jump into those 5 questions.
Of course. Let's go.
So question 1, what is the one tool in your GTM stack that you cannot live without?
For me, it's outreach. Because it gives us insight to be able to coach people the best in terms of what they're saying, how they're saying it, the messages we're sending out, and also the breadth and depth of accounts that we're contacting.
Very good. And the biggest GTM myth that you would like to kill off?
Hierarchy. We are all pipeline generators. We all contribute towards the pipeline and the revenue goal.
Awesome. Love that. The metric you look at first thing on a Monday morning?
My intent signal project I have in Claude to show me all the accounts that are showing signals that I can then use to help the team go in the right direction.
Interesting. So do you disperse those signals, or are the teams already set up with, they've got their defined territories and it's automatically routing to them, but you're seeing those intent signals?
So it's very much in its infancy at the moment. At the moment, I disperse them when I see them on a Monday morning and maybe on a Friday afternoon. But my aim is to get that into a thing so that a BDR can come in every morning, and then they open up Claude, click project refresh, and there are their top 5 accounts that they need to prospect that day.
Excellent. Question 4. Which GTM self-help or book do you always go back to, and why?
There's 2. The Multiplier Effect by Liz Wiseman, from leadership perspective, and then Problem Prospecting by Mark Ackers and Richard Smith for the team and the coaching of the team.
Very good. And if you still look at your network, who is the most underrated person in that network that more people should really know about?
If I go cybersecurity, I'm going to go with our Homestar talent of Maury Haber.
Very good. Thank you for that, and thank you for your time today on the outside seat. The what's come through loud and clear, and we could have talked for another 2 hours, 3 hours around BDRs and SDRs, having been there myself, wore the t-shirt, burnt the t-shirt, frustrated with the t-shirt. But what's clear is the evolution of the BDR profession. So if I go back 20 years when I first started, I say 20, I think more like 25 now. But when I first started, it was the yellow pages, a ruler, a pen, and a handheld phone. And what we've seen is that evolution over time where we introduced email and we introduced social selling, and that evolution is speeding up. And there's more tools that are being thrown at the BDR problem, if you like, to try and get people to engage with a company's outreach. So you're a master of your craft. You've been doing this for a long time, and you're helping guide and take our current crop of BDRs and SDRs on the journey to a career, hopefully in sales. And that's a huge badge of honor to wear, because, and you've done this through your recruitment career, and you've done this now as a BDR leader as well. There's going to be people in 10, 15 years who look back at what you've done to help them on their career, and they're going to be super proud of the work that they've done under your leadership. So thank you for helping guide the young bloods today, and for your time on the outside seat today. So really appreciate your time, Simon.
No, it's my absolute pleasure. And what you just said there, it's, I say, people evolve over time as well, don't they? If that's even a word. And if I look back at my career, it's the how I've how I've evolved over time is taking, that's where I get my joy. I used to be the closing the sales, and sure, that's still in my DNA, but it's that getting an individual, helping them shape their career, giving them that guidance, and then going to see them go on to bigger and better things. That is the joy. I think it's probably with my having children now as well, has definitely changed that tact. And that is where, if we can help their goals in life, then what, we've done our job well.
Could not have said it any better. Thank you for your time today. And until next time on the outside seat.
My pleasure.
All the best. Your buyers are still sitting in that outside seat. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on Apple or Spotify, drop a like and a follow. It genuinely means the world as we keep growing this channel. And if today's conversation sparked a question or a thought, leave it in the comments. Every month I answer your questions in a dedicated episode, and the best ones might just end up on Instagram, LinkedIn or TikTok. Your question could be the next conversation that we have. This episode was brought to you by Flourish. Find them at helloflourish.com. We'll see you next time with a brand new guest in the outside seat.